It's time to remove the mystery from medicine, to seize control of one's health, and to genuinely comprehend the essence of terms like wellness and wholeness. The Ask Dr. Jill podcast provides information, knowledge, and empowerment information to empower you to be wholly well. Dr. Jill Waggoner has nearly 3 decades of medical practice and has a deep-rooted belief in diverse approaches to patient care, well beyond conventional medicine. This realization has fueled her lifelong pursuit of understanding a holistic perspective on health.
Hello and welcome to another episode of, isn't that cute? It sounds like I'm doing some kind of commercial. Welcome to another episode of Ask Dr. Jill, the Ask Dr. Jill podcast. Anyway, thank you guys for coming and giving us some of your time and some of your day. How are y'all doing on your New Year's resolutions? Do you even remember what they were? Yes, you do. Pull it out and go ahead and start doing it again. But I hope you have incorporated some things into your wellness protocol, into your wellness plan, and that you're starting to see some results of the incorporation of those things. So for the last few episodes, we have talked about hormones and women. And I want you to know that we're going to talk about hormones and men in some episodes in the future. And whenever we talk about hormones, we always talk about postmenopausal stuff. So we spent a lot of time on that. We talked about what symptoms were for perimenopause and for postmenopause. And we talked about, Nick was on with us last time, and we talked about hormone replacement therapy, which was an absolutely wonderful conversation. So if you did not get an opportunity to go and listen to that or look at it, please do, because I think it's going to give you some good information. But today, I thought I would talk about premenstrual syndrome, PMS, and some of those things, because we spend so much time talking about what happens when the hormones are gone. But let's spend a little bit of time talking about when the hormones are full throttle, and that's PMS. So you have PMS, which is premenstrual syndrome. There's something called premenstrual dysmorphic syndrome, which is PMDD. And then there's also something called period flu. So we're going to talk about all of those things a little bit today, because I think it's important that, first of all, you know what's happening in your body, you know what to do, you know what the symptoms are. You'll be able to tell when you need some more help. So the first thing, let's talk about period flu. I know there are some of you all who have never heard of period flu. I actually had not heard of it myself until my daughter told me about it. And let me tell you what the symptoms are, and then you'll kind of know what I mean. There are some women who right before their periods get symptoms like body aches, and they get even a sore throat. They get fatigue and sleep disruption. Their temperature will elevate. That is a syndrome called period flu. It's a little beyond your regular premenstrual syndrome, in that they have these symptoms that are almost like viruses. And so they will check for, now that we're all in tune to things like COVID and RSV and those kinds of things, they will get checked out for flu, or they'll get checked out for a viral infection, and there's nothing there. And so for some of those women, they notice that they get this every time their cycle is about to come around. And so there's now a syndrome called period flu. That's important to know, because you may have a daughter or a granddaughter, or you may be having those things yourself. And if you know that there's something out there, you can talk to your healthcare provider about what to do. So that's premenstrual syndrome. We know premenstrual syndrome is referred to as a combination of physical and emotional symptoms. And about 70% of women have some kind of PMS. So this is very, very common. I remember when I was in college, there were some of my sorority sisters. One of them had such severe premenstrual syndrome that she would literally miss a couple of days of class every month because her symptoms were so severe. So And then there's premenstrual dysmorphic syndrome. Yes, something else. Dysmorphic syndrome is usually associated with women who have very severe emotional symptoms. So they can have severe anxiety, severe depression. And there are some women that have a combination of those symptoms, and they have to try to navigate through that. Even if you're not one of those women who has that, has those symptoms that are that severe, you might want to know about this so you can help somebody else, somebody in your family, somebody you know, like I said, your children, your grandchildren, so that they understand there's not anything wrong with them, but they actually have, something that is going on. So let's talk about some symptoms. I think it's important for us to take time to talk about symptoms. Some women, particularly with period flu, will describe it as they feel like suddenly that they've been hit by a truck. So they can tell that their period is coming because they get such severe fatigue that they just feel like, I have the flu. I am so ill. They get things like body aches. They get muscle and joints aching. Headaches are very, very common with a period flu, with PMS, with premenstrual dysmorphic syndrome. There are a lot of women who get headaches. Some of those headaches are even migraine headaches. So there are women who have debilitating migraine headaches every month as they approach their period. Some women get nausea, and so they really get nauseated. And you think about that with things like early pregnancy, but they are also with those swings in hormones. For some women closer to their periods, they will get that nausea as well. Brain fog. Now, you remember when we were talking about postmenopausal stuff, we talked about brain fog. It seems that brain fog is really closely associated with your hormones. So for some women, just like right before your period starts, let me kind of give you a little bit. Right before your period starts, your estrogen falls. For women, a lot of them, when that estrogen falls, whether it's a PMS fall, or whether it's a premenopausal fall, or whether it's a postmenopausal fall, they get brain fog. So there are women that right before their periods, they will get kind of a brain fog, and so they'll have difficulty focusing. And then the sore throat that I talked about, I really wanted to bring that sore throat up again, because women who get that are like, why is it every month my throat is sore? And so if you understand that it's associated with your period, you may not end up taking unnecessary antibiotics, making unnecessary visit to the doctor. You know, this is just part of my syndrome and what I have to do. There are other symptoms like bloating, breast tenderness. A lot of women know about that, the fatigue. And so for some women, food cravings and changes in appetite. I'm going to talk about food cravings a little bit later, but there are lots of women who really get food cravings. There's some research that says that it's more a social phenomenon than an actual phenomenon, but I think that's from some researcher who is male and doesn't know. But I didn't say that out loud, did I? Okay, anyway, emotional symptoms that are associated with PMS and premenstrual dysmorphic syndrome and all of those other things include mood swings, irritability or anger, being short-tempered. It's real, guys. Anxiety, depression, again, that brain fog or difficulty focusing or concentrating. And then the other thing, a change in sleep patterns. There are women that right around their cycles, they don't sleep as well. So the sleep is not the same, and that's important to know. So when you have all of these, first of all, what I want to tell you is that it is a natural phenomena. There is not anything wrong with you. The issue is you have to learn how to deal with it. What can you talk about? What things can you do? So I'm saying treatment, but it's not necessarily treatment. It is management more than treatment. So I'm about to give you a list of things that you can do in order to kind of help you manage or deal with those premenstrual syndrome symptoms, whatever they are. The first one is anticipation and preparation. If your period is pretty regular, you know when it's coming. And so you should be able to tell about a week before for some women. For some women, the symptoms will start a week before. For some women, they will start as early as 2 weeks before. So for those women, they are literally having some kind of symptoms half of the month, and bless their hearts. But anticipation and preparation. So what does that mean? If you know that you get fatigued right before your period, you want to do everything you can to schedule yourself where you don't have just really, really stressful days, where you don't have a whole lot to do. Now, I know that's easier said than done, but if you have some flexibility in what your schedule can look like, then you can do those things. Then the other thing is try to get some rest. So again, if you can make your schedule where you have a little more rest time, maybe a little more time to sleep, maybe a little more time to maybe spend in relaxation, meditation, some of that, you want to do that. There are cultures where women really almost get a kind of a respite time around their cycles, where they just not expected to carry such a heavy load. I think that's one of the things that you kind of have to work out with your family and friends if you can, and you're one of those people who has very severe symptoms, that you know what's going on and the people around you know what's going on. So stay rest up if you can. The second one is stay hydrated. Listen, hydration is critical for everything. But if you drink lots of water and you make sure that your diet is clean so that you don't have all of those toxins circulating. So if you've got hormones that are swinging and your brain is doing something weird or funky anyway, and then you add a little poison in there from your diet, we're going to have a problem, Houston. So you really want to focus on that so that you make sure that you are hydrating yourself so that you can facilitate the excretion of any toxins that you are getting exposed to. And you want to limit your exposure and input of toxins, ladies. You always want to do that as well. Eating well is critical. Listen, you need to eat well all the time. One of the most important things you can do for your body is to make sure that you give it good fuel. It cannot repair itself. It cannot build muscle. It cannot do any of the things that it needs to do if you don't have proper nutrients. So not calories, nutrients. So make sure that your diet is nutrient dense, and particularly around your period. Then the other thing is exercise. Exercise is great for everything. You must exercise on a regular basis. It helps your mood. It helps your body. It helps relaxation. It helps to balance those hormones and keep that harmony flowing. All of that is so important. And then the other thing is stress management. Now, I could do a whole session on stress management. Boy, we are stressed. Everybody is. And managing stress, you don't want managing stress to become a stressor. You know, that's the thing when you start thinking about things. It's like, oh, I got to fix that. I got to eat healthy. Oh my gosh, now I'm stressed about that. That's not what I mean. I'm just mean being aware, being in tune, knowing when you are feeling a little more stressed than you normally would. And you think, why am I so irritable today? Maybe it might be one of those times when your hormones are swinging one way or another. And it is not a cop-out, guys. It is reality. Don't let the world tell you that those changes that you feel around your period are not real. They are. And if they are for you, you don't need anybody else to validate that or agree with you. They are what they are. It is what it is. And so you have to make those adjustments. That's really important. So if you can try not to be stressed or not to put yourself in stressful situations, that will be a great time. And for some women, they have such intensity of their symptoms during that time, that I would say don't make any major decisions as well. If you know that you're in the throes of something that's really tough, if you don't have to make the decision right now when you're when you have a little PMS happening, you might want to do that. So don't divorce your husband or quit your boyfriend or girlfriend or any of that when you're PMSing. There you go. You always have to prioritize self-care. So let me just go back and talk about cravings for a little bit. They've actually done some research on women and their cravings around their periods. There have been some studies that suggest that the swing in hormones lead to increased cravings for carbohydrates and sweet foods and chocolate. So there's some that say this is a real hormonal thing. There are some other studies that suggest that it's a social phenomenon. So there was one study that I looked at that said in some cultures, they don't really have a word for craving, that it's an American phenomenon, that women crave chocolate around their periods. There was even some researchers that postulated that it may be because women feel bad or because they feel more stressed, that it is an excuse for them to eat otherwise forbidden food. And I was thinking, I wish a woman would get a hold to him or her during that time. Get between them and their chocolate, sweetheart. We'll see what happens. Anyway, so I think that's important to know, that it very well could be biological. And so if you're one of those people, you don't want to blow all of the good stuff that you've done for your body when you're not PMSing or during that premenstrual dysmorphic time period, that you want to plan for that as well. So we know that doing dark cocoa, 70% or higher, is actually good for your health. You might want to keep some dark chocolate around, and you can do that with a little sea salt. So it's also believed, though, that there's molecules in your body which are endocannabinoids. They impact eating behaviors. And so cannabis, doesn't that sound familiar to you? So there are receptors in our brain that are really stimulated by cannabinoids, things like cannabis, that makes us feel better. So they believe that the endocannabinoids change or fall right before your period. And so you are more inclined to want to have something that will stimulate those receptors, which is real interesting to me. And so chocolate kind of gives you that same effect, and cannabis does as well. So I thought that was important, and I thought that was a good thing for us to put on the list. So how many days prior to your period should you anticipate any symptoms that you are going to have? Generally, the symptoms can start just a few days before your period for most women. But as I said, there are some women who have symptoms for 2 weeks. So they may start right in the middle of your cycle and go all the way through. One of the other issues I think it's important to mention is there are some women who don't have a cycle anymore. Either they've had an endometrial ablation, and for those of you who've had that, you had a laser removal of the endometrium, which is what's responsible for your period, and so you don't have a period. Or some women who have had their uterus removed, they still have their hormones, but they don't have their uterus. Not having your uterus and not physically having a period flow does not mean, if you still have ovaries, you still have those changes in hormones. So for women who have had a hysterectomy, which just means removing of the uterus, if they've had that hysterectomy without the oophorectomy is when they remove the ovaries. But if you've just had the hysterectomy and you still have your ovaries, you can still have premenstrual syndrome without the flow. So that's important to know for those of you who may have had those surgical changes. So I hope this has been good information for you. Make sure that you are always prioritizing the goodness and the good things that you can do for you so that you feel well during your premenstrual phase, that you feel well during your postmenopausal phase, that you feel good and take good care of yourself all the time. So I'll see you next time. As always, love to you. I love you guys, and love to those that you love.